All right, it's the middle of the week. It's Wednesday. And it's the Morning Pitt here on youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. I'm Chris Peak from Panther-Lair.com, Panther-Lair.com, Pittsburgh.rivals.com. I always feel like if I emphasize the dash, then you're really going to know that we're serious. That is the most comprehensive source of Pitt sports news on the internet, football, basketball, and recruiting. Pittsburgh.rivals.com, Panther-Lair.com. And of course, the deal that we always say, like this video and subscribe to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. I think there's a lot of you out there watching these videos who are not subscribed to the YouTube channel, so you should do that. youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com to never miss any of our Pitt video content that we have right here at youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. We put out a lot of stuff. We do these Morning Pitt videos every day. As we always say, we have our live Panther-Lair show. We'll do that tonight at 8:30 p.m. right here at youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. You can join the conversation with your comments and questions. You post them over here. There's like a chat screen right there. So, you watch these daily Morning Pitt videos, you hear me say things, you say that's stupid, or I have a question about that, or a comment, or a reaction, or whatever it is. There's nothing you can do about it. You can send me an email or make a comment on the video, and I may or may not respond to it. I try and do a better job of that than I have. But during the live show tonight, you post your comments and questions. We're going to read as many of them as we can throughout the hour. So it's a real chance for interaction. It's a real chance for back and forth. It's like a call-in show, except we're not going to hear your voice. We're just going to read your comments and questions on the show live. And so it's always fun. I like having those conversations, having that back and forth. So hopefully you can tune in tonight for that. And you want to make sure you don't miss it. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. Turn on your notifications and you'll get an alert sent to your phone whenever we go live. Tomorrow night, it is the first round of the draft. Do not forget, Draft 412 is throwing a draft party, a first round draft watch party at Stage AE. Down on the North Shore, the North Side, as the old timers call it, and I think it still should be called that, but it's neither here nor there. But we're going to be inside at Stage AE. I'm going to be down there talking about Pitt players and Pitt prospects. If anybody gets drafted, we're obviously keeping an eye on Kalijah Cansey tomorrow night, and so that's going to be a big one to watch. And I'll be there to talk about it. Merrill Hodge is going to be there. It supports the Jerome Bettis, the Bus Stops Here Foundation, and basically you're going to go down to Stage AE. You're going to eat, you're going to drink, and you're going to watch the first round of the draft with commentary and a bunch of other people, and it's going to be fun. It's going to be a draft party, which I think is what it's become with the first round, where everybody just kind of hangs out and watches it, and it's a big deal. I mean, this is the big one. We'll all pay attention through the weekend, of course, but the first round, this is the big one. So it'll be fun to get together and do that. So you should come down and hang out tomorrow night at Stage E. Go to draft412.com for details. It's draft412, the numbers 412. Draft412.com for the details on everything that you need to know for tomorrow night. Hopefully you'll come down and hang out. We'll see you there. It'll be a good time. We talked a lot about transfers yesterday. We kind of went over the history of transfers for Pitt. Transfers that Pat Narduzzi has brought to Pittsburgh. 36 players total, including the 6 that they already have committed for now. 5 of them were here during spring camp, plus Malcolm Epps, the USC tight end who's coming in. And so we kind of looked at the history yesterday. Where did all those transfers come from? What positions did the coaches really target? What impact have those guys made? We looked at, like I say, Pat Narduzzi's history of taking transfers. I thought today we'd kind of continue that conversation and do a little ranking. I mean, who doesn't like doing rankings and countdowns and things like that? And this is actually picking up on something we did last August, I think it was. I forget if I talked about it on the Morning Pit. I probably did. But I know I wrote about it in the 3-2-1 column one week last August. I ranked the 21 transfers who had come to Pitt prior to last season. So not including the guys like Keaton Slovis and Kanate Mumfield and Sibo Flemister and Shane Simon and Tyler Wiltz and all those guys who joined for the 2022 season. I just ranked everybody who joined, prior to that. Guys who had actually played or been on the team and potentially would have played. They had a few guys that they brought in and never actually saw the field, but we ranked the 21. We ranked all 21 guys, and then they added 8 more heading into last season. So there's 29 now. And I'm kind of using last year's ranking as a bit of a base to work from here. And we're not going to rank all 29 on the show this morning. I feel like that would probably take a little too long. But I think we can rank the top 10. The top 10 transfers of the Pat Narduzzi era. And looking back over what I did last year, and I'm not going to recount my entire top 10 last year, because we'll kind of get to it as we talk about each guy. If some of the players moved up, some moved down, some stayed in the same place, the different sort of movement that happened. But I'll say this, all right, as we look at this list, and this is the 21 transfers who played prior to 2022. So before we even get into Slovis and Mumpfield and Means and Flemister and Simon and Wiltz and all those guys, the 21 transfers before that Pat Narduzzi has brought in, there have been some guys who have made huge impacts. I know there's no question about it. Those names come to mind for you very quickly, I'm sure. But it's not really all that many. Just out of 21 guys, when I ranked them, and I ranked all 21, 1 through 21, number 10 was Dwayne Hendricks. Number 11 was Nolan Elizio. Number 12 was Nakia Griffin-Stewart. Number 13 was Matt Flanagan. That's how quickly we got out of the realm of contributors and impact players to guys who, Hendricks played a lot. Elizio started every game. Griffin-Stewart played a lot. But it's not like they were really all that good. It's not like they really helped Pitt win all that many games. Elizio was the starting right tackle in 2019. Not exactly a notable year for the offense. Dwayne Hendricks was at Pitt for like 3 years and had, I think he played in 25 games and had 7.5 sacks over the course of that time. He was supposed to be a beast. Nakia Griffin-Stewart was here for 2 years, I think, and scored 1 touchdown. He might have only been here for 1 year. I forget exactly. Maybe it was just the 2019 season, but that's how quick it sort of drops off. And if we expand the pool out to 29 players, because prior to this season, Pitt has brought in 29 transfers, not counting the 6 who are already, or 30 transfers, I guess, not counting the 6 who are already on board for right now. Yeah, it's 30 transfers. I'm sorry. Prior to this year. And if you expand out and include Slovis and, the 8 transfers they brought in last year, Keaton Slovis, Derek Kyler, Kanate Mumfield, Bub Means, Sibo Flemister, Dylan Devaney, Shane Simon, Tyler Wiltz, there's probably only a couple of those guys that you would put, based on what they've done so far, ahead of Dwayne Hendricks. I would probably put Kanate Mumfield ahead of Dwayne Hendricks. I think he's a guy who's sort of right on the border. But would you put Bub Means ahead of Dwayne Hendricks? Dwayne Hendricks had 7.5 sacks over the course of 25 games in his Pitt career. Last year, Bub Means caught 27 passes for 400 yards and 2 touchdowns. Who are you picking there? If you were going to rank these guys, I'd assume like Means and Hendricks would be right around the same area. Maybe you put Mumfield a little bit higher, 58 receptions last year, 550 yards, 1 touchdown. Maybe you put Mumfield, you're okay putting him above Hendricks, but Means and Hendricks sort of feel about the same to me. 2 guys who look like $1 million, but didn't really make that big of an impact. Now there was a lot that went into it with Bub Means. Obviously, there were bigger issues with the offense as a whole, whereas Dwayne Hendricks just simply didn't produce. But I would probably slot Means. I don't know. I'm not sure if I would put him ahead of Hendricks or not, but either way, those guys are right around that 10 to 12 range. So with 30 players, I think before you even get to 15, you're already digging into, some of these guys we're talking about, Dwayne Hendricks, Nolan Elizio, Nakia Griffin-Stewart. So I think you barely get halfway through before you're into guys that you say, well, their contributions were negligible. And some of them, the best thing you can say is, well, they appeared in a lot of games. So Pitt has gotten huge contributions from transfers, but not that many, really. And I think as you rank the top 10, that kind of gets laid out. Like number 10 now, and he was number 8 last year. I dropped him 2 spots based on some things that happened over the last season. But number 10 for me now is DJ Turner, wide receiver from Maryland, came in at Pitt. He had 44 catches, 634 yards, 3 touchdowns. He was Pitt's second leading receiver in 2020. And of those 44 catches, 634 yards, and 3 touchdowns, he had like 23 catches, 370 yards, and one of his 3 touchdowns basically in 2 games. I mean, he lit it up. He lit it up big time against NC State and Virginia Tech, and really didn't do that much the other, 9 games that Pitt played that season. And so that's sort of another example of how quick there's that drop-off. Turner was so good in those 2 games that it's good enough to sort of keep him in the top 10 right now. I'll tell you where I really kind of like debated and what I went back and forth about was DJ Turner versus Tyler Wiltz for the number 10 spot. Tyler Wiltz last year was Pitt's 4th leading tackler. He had 50 tackles, 4 tackles for loss, 2 sacks, a huge interception in the Sun Bowl. And I really debated of whether or not to move Wiltz ahead of DJ Turner. Who would you rank at number 10 if you were deciding between DJ Turner and Tyler Wiltz? These are 2 guys who played just 1 year at Pitt, kind of flashed big in a couple games. They were decent role players and reserves in the rest of the games, and they had a couple big games on their to their credit. But it's not like they had a full season of all conference level production. So I'm curious what you would do there. I'm giving Wiltz, I'm putting him in at number 11 for now. I'm calling him an honorable mention on the top 10 and leaving DJ Turner at number 10. But I'm curious about your thoughts. This would be a fun one, actually. This would be a fun conversation to have on the live show, and we can do sort of back and forth and have some reactions and see what people have to say. And maybe we'll bring it up tonight. We'll probably will. We'll talk about it a little bit. Some of these rankings. So like I said, DJ Turner moved down 2 spots from 8 to 10. 2 players jumped ahead of him. One we're not going to get to for a little while, but one we're getting to right now. At number 9, I'm putting Shane Simon, who transferred in from Notre Dame last year. He ended up 6th on Pitt's list of tacklers last season. 46 tackles, 5.5 tackles for loss, 2 sacks, 6 pass breakups. He forced a fumble. He recovered a fumble. And I put Simon, Wiltz had that big interception in the Sun Bowl, and more tackles than Shane Simon by 4. Simon had more tackles for loss. Obviously had the forced fumble and the fumble recovery. But he was a 13-game starter. He played money linebacker and middle linebacker. And I'm kind of including the projection for Shane Simon this year, where he's expected to be Pitt's starting middle linebacker for his final season in Pittsburgh. And I'm kind of including that too, that his overall performance as a transfer at Pitt and contributions as a transfer at Pitt have been significant enough to move him up to number 9, put him ahead of not only Tyler Wiltz, but bump him above DJ Turner, who had, really good stats, but basically in 2 games at wide receiver, whereas Simon was a pretty solid full season performer. So I'm going with him at number 9. At number 8, we have a guy who moves down 1 spot because, like I said, there's somebody who jumped up a few positions here. But number 8 is Taysier Mack. And I think Taysier Mack, I talked about this a little bit yesterday. Transfer from Indiana, played 4 seasons at Pitt, caught 138 passes, 2,059 yards, and 9 touchdowns. I feel like Pitt fans probably don't give him as much credit as he deserves because of his inconsistency. He just was never really consistent enough. He was never healthy enough. He seemed to miss a lot of time. I mean, over the course of 4 seasons, he played in 40 games, but he made some big plays for Pitt. He had some big plays in the ACC Coastal Championship winning season, the 2018 season. He was a good deep threat. There was a while, for most of his career, he was the best deep threat on the team. He was a big part of the ACC championship. He had that 4th down touchdown catch right against Clemson. It was right, and so he was. He made some big plays for Pitt, and I think was an important part of the success they had. He just, because of his inconsistency, I think Pitt fans sort of underrate him and underrate how he played and the impact he made while he was here. So I have him at number 8 on the ranking of top 10 transfers under Narduzzi. Number 7, another guy who moved down 1 spot from number 6 last year is Kylan Johnson, linebacker transfer from Florida. And actually, I put these 2 guys together. I have Johnson at 7 and Johnny Patrician at 6. Last year they were 6 and 5 respectively, and they're pretty close. There's not a big difference between those two guys in terms of their impact and contribution. The biggest difference is that Patrician played at Pitt for 3 years, and for his final 2 years he was a pretty significant contributor. And his final season, 2021, he was really important. He was a top 6 linebacker, made 6 starts at star linebacker, and had 74 tackles, 7.5 tackles for loss, and 4.5 sacks, as well as 3 interceptions to help that ACC championship winning defense. Kylan Johnson had fewer tackles. He did have 10.5 tackles for loss and 6.5 sacks. He was a really good player. I think both of those guys were really good. I put them at 7 and 6 on the ranking of top 10 transfers, and you could really you could include this next guy, a few of these guys, but we'll get to it in a second. I just see Johnson and Patrician being pretty close. Patrician's multi-year contributions being the real separating factor there of why I give him the nod at number 6. At number 5, we have a guy who was number 4 last year. It's Lucas Krull. And, Kylan Johnson, DJ Turner, you could say Johnny Patrician, since his biggest contributions came in that 2021 season. Lucas Krull, and even some of these guys that are ranked higher, they had one big year at Pitt. And some of it makes sense. A few of these guys we're talking about are sort of older transfers, pre-transfer portal guys who came in as grad transfers. They only had 1 year of eligibility to play. Kylan Johnson, that was the case. I think DJ Turner, that was the case. Some of the other guys we're going to talk about here, that was the case. They just had 1 season to play. And so we're really only kind of ranking them on one big year. But for some of these guys, the big year was really big. And that was the case with Lucas Krull in 2021. He had the most touchdowns by a Pitt tight end in 13 years. He was an all-conference second-team selection. And he was a big part of the offensive success that Pitt had. Like I said, I had him number 4 last year on the top 10 transfers of the Narduzzi era. I'm dropping him down 1 spot this year to number 5, just because we had to make room for somebody who made a huge jump from last year. But Lucas Krull, you can't even say not very good in 2020. He didn't make an impact in 2020. He caught 1 pass. I think he was targeted twice and caught one of them for like 6 yards or something. And then he was hurt and never played again. 2021, though, he seemed to capitalize and show some of that potential that everyone thought he had, and he ended up becoming a big-time player for Pitt in the offense. Number 4, we have the guy who made the biggest jump. And this guy, last time when I ranked them, was number 9, and he jumped from 9 all the way up to 4. 9 might have been a little too high heading into 2022. He might have been a few steps lower, but I sort of based some of it on potential, based some of it on projection, and he certainly lived up to it in 2022. It's MJ Devonshire. Played in 13 games last year, started 9 at cornerback. He was the punt returner. He had 33 tackles, 8 pass breakups, 3 interceptions. And it's really the big plays that separate MJ Devonshire. He scored 3 touchdowns last year, right? 2 pick sixes and a punt return touchdown. One of the, obviously maybe the single biggest play of the season with that, the pick 6 to beat West Virginia. But overall, I thought he just played really, really well and made those big splash plays. And I jump him all the way up to number 4, and I debated actually going higher because of the impact that he made and the fact that he's got another season to come back to here. I would expect him to start every game this season. And if not every game, it might be a split like last year where it's 13-9. 13 games played and 9 starts. And if he makes the big splash impact plays this year like he did last year, and some of those things, some of it you have to leave to chance. You can't always force those things. You need a lot of things to go right to get a tip drill pick 6 to beat West Virginia in the season opener. But if he can make a couple more of those kinds of plays, in addition to just being really solid as a corner, he might jump in to the top 3 or top 2, who knows, in the rankings of these transfers here. But for now, I've got him at number 4. I think that's where he belongs, and that's why a couple of these other guys moved down. Shane Simon jumped into the rankings at number 9, and Devonshire moved up from 9 to 4. All right, top 3. And these guys are unchanged from last year. I'm sticking with the group that I had a year ago as the top 3 transfers under Pat Narduzzi, and I'm not sure if I see them changing unless Phil Dracovic has an amazing year. If he has a great season, then obviously he'll jump pretty high on these rankings next year. But as it stands right now, number 3 is Stefano Millen, left tackle on the Coastal Championship winning team. Helped make open all the room for that running game to go and protect Kenny Pickett as best he could. And he was a big part of that offensive line, and that ended up getting to Charlotte and going to a Sun Bowl a few years ago. I think Stefano Millen sort of gets forgotten because he came from Kent State and he was only here for 1 year and he was an offensive lineman. It's a little bit harder to remember those guys, but he was an important one and he played really well. He was a really good transfer addition. And I think, he just played really well. I don't know if there's much more to say other than that he provided 14 games of really solid play at left tackle as a starting left tackle. Not an easy position to step into when you're stepping up a level from Kent State to Pitt. And he did it really, really well. Number 2, I go with Marcus Minor, transferring in from Maryland. He played 2 years, and that's kind of what distinguishes Minor above a guy like Millen is that he played 2 years. He was part of the ACC Championship offensive line in 2021, and he came back and played every game last year. I think he was, a 27-game starter over 2 years at Pitt. Never missed any time. He was healthy and played well and helped one really, really good offense and one really good rushing offense over his 2 years at Pitt. So I put him as number 2. And then the number 1 transfer is the guy we talked about a little bit yesterday. It's Nate Peterman. Almost exclusively on the strength of that Clemson game. I really thought about trying to re-rank it, but I don't know who you would put at number 1 whose career accomplishments at Pitt could surpass what Peterman did on that one day at Clemson. I mean, it really is so much about Nate Peterman is built on that game. I mean, arguably his professional career it would not exist if not for that game. And my ranking of him at number 1 is exclusively because of that game. If he just had an average game that day, he'd probably be top 10, but he wouldn't be number 1. I don't know who would be. I don't see a really clear option for number 1. I guess Minor, because he's number 2, and if you take out number 1, number 2 has to slide up, right? But I can't really think of another good option to put there. And Clemson, that Clemson win, man, that counts for a whole lot. And Peterman was pretty awesome that day. Had the game of his career, probably one of the best single game performances by a Pitt quarterback ever. I mean, that rivals Tyler Palko at Notre Dame, I would say. And maybe even more impressive than that one. But Nate Peterman a lot of guys played a great game that day. Nate Peterman was the guy leading the charge as the quarterback. So that's my top 10. Number 10, DJ Turner. Number 9, Shane Simon. Number 8, Taysier Mack. Number 7, Kylan Johnson. Number 6, John Patrician. Number 5, Lucas Krull. Number 4, MJ Devonshire with a chance to move up this year. Number 3, Stefano Millen. Number 2, Marcus Minor. And number 1, Nate Peterman. What's your ranking? What do you think of those rankings? You agree? You think I got 1 through 10 with Tyler Wiltz as an honorable mention? You think I got 1 through 10 right, or do you think I screwed it all up? Who would you put ahead of each other? Who would you put ahead of Tyler Wiltz or DJ Turner? Bub Means or Dwayne Hendricks? Who would you based on what Means has done so far, how would you rank those guys? Curious for your thoughts and input and feedback. Put it in the comments here. Like I say, we can talk about this tonight on the live Panther-Lair show right here on youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. So tune in for that at 8:30 p.m. tonight. You don't want to miss it, and you don't want to miss the party tomorrow night. Draft 412, first round draft party, Stage AE on the North Shore. Go to draft412.com to check it out. I'm going to be there. I hope you are too. Come up and say hello. It would be fun to hang out for a night and watch the draft. Thanks for tuning into this morning. Make sure you like this video and subscribe. youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. I hope you've had a great week so far. We're at the middle of it. It's hump day or Wednesday, whatever we call this day. So I hope this is a good one for you, and we will talk to you. We'll talk to you tonight on the live show, and then we'll catch you tomorrow morning on the Morning Pit right here on youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com.